to Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. I actually tried to take some time away from the stuff that I do every day, just to go spend some time with my family. I had a good time, um, and of course, like everybody else, I was following the situation in Ferguson. I've been following it for a very long time. We sent one of our bloggers, April Taylor, to Ferguson to cover everything that was happening on the ground because, as you know, I don't have a lot of faith in mainstream media. Sometimes I'll do the CNN and all that stuff, but to be honest with you, I believe that when you're trying to make significant progress in the black community, you have to find a way to talk to each other in a way that's unfiltered and uncensored. And I do believe that mainstream media is pretty much in many cases, a consistent promoter of propaganda. They kind of tell you what they think that you should hear, and I think that's a huge problem. That's one of the greatest problems the black community has faced because we've never really got a chance to talk to each other without some sort of diluted or distorted interface. Now, with that being said, I saw that Michael Brown's stepfather has been charged by police, or he's being investigated for inciting a riot after some video emerged showing him basically saying, burn this bitch down after Officer Darren Wilson was not indicted. Now, obviously, if you know me, you know that I certainly can understand his frustration, and I can certainly agree with a lot of what he said. And so, what I guess where I'll start with that is to say, number one, uh, that non-indictment. We know that that was bullshit. Excuse my French. We know that non-indictment didn't make any sense. If you look at, there's an article in the Washington Post, and we also talked about it on Your Black World, in which they showed that the likelihood of getting a non-indictment in charges that are taken to a grand jury is about 1 in 11,000. That right there tells you that this was rigged from the jump. They had no intention of indicting him. Now, remember, an indictment is not a conviction. That's really a pre-conviction. It's not even a pre-conviction. It's saying let's just get the evidence out on the table. And I think that non-indictment really spoke to uh, the reason that people in Ferguson have good reason to be very frustrated with the way things are done in that city. Now, backing up from that, he's talking specifically about the Michael Brown situation. First, I'll start off by saying that I find it very interesting that Michael Brown's stepfather is being charged for allegedly inciting a riot when Officer Darren Wilson is allowed to go free, for murdering his son. Which if given that we don't have much evidence one way or the other. They haven't had much disclosure one way or the other. They've been so corrupt in all scenarios. It's hard to say that this is anything but a murder, because Officer Wilson and the Ferguson Police Department have not been forthcoming about exactly what happened or about their investigation. And in a way, it reminds me of those situations maybe when you're little, where somebody hits you and then you hit them back, and then you get punished for hitting the person back when nobody even addresses the fact that they hit you first. That's the kind of rigged game that African Americans have been forced to play for the longest time. I personally am appreciative of this particular movement in Ferguson more so than other movements in the past because uh, we have to get past this idea that holding hands, singing, and marching in silence is going to get us what we want. You will never be able to pity yourself to equality, and what I mean by that is, yes, the imagery of black people being sprayed by water hoses and bitten by dogs and stuff like that, that certainly does heighten the sensitivities of the American public. It did serve its purpose to some extent during the civil rights movement, but understand that uh, people feeling sorry for you is not going to lead them to give you access to the equality that you deserve. And so ultimately, I think that we become addicted to this idea of expecting that if we are calm and peaceful and quiet, that things are going to work themselves out because eventually white people are going to do the right thing. Well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but white America is not going to do the right thing. You know why? Because they don't respect you. They don't respect you. They look at you like you are the weakest little bitch that they've ever seen in their life. And I say that, and sometimes I cuss, so let's get rid of the professor facade. I'm a man first, and sometimes it happens. And I don't do it on purpose. It just comes out. Blame it on my father. He cusses a lot too. But anyway, but no, actually, I have to take responsibility for that. Okay, so I'll take that. But my point here is that you know, we live in a society, we live in a world where people only respect, as a collective, people only respect power. If you look at the way the United States responds when they are attacked, when the World Trade Center was attacked in 9/11, they didn't respond by saying we're going to peacefully negotiate with the terrorists and we're going to march and hold hands and sing "We Shall Overcome." They said, no, we're going to burn this bitch down. We're going to blow the hell out of you. We're going to burn you up and blow you up, and we're going to drop so many missiles on you that you will regret the day you were ever born. Now, do I agree with American foreign policy? No, I think American foreign policy is what caused the 9/11 attacks in the first place. We've created so many enemies around the world that we can't go safely to many places on the globe and without someone hating us, because we've destroyed so many families around the world. So, but the point here though is that if you talk about human nature, power really only respects power. So you cannot gain that much power with sort of this passive aggressive powerlessness. I get very frustrated every time something like this occurs and they prop up some black person who goes out and says, I just want to say no matter what the verdict is, I just want to appeal for calm. I don't want I don't want any violence. I just want everyone to be calm. Well, again, what if George Bush, the president, during 9/11 had said, I just want to appeal for calm. I don't want any violence. I don't want anyone to get hurt. People would have laughed at him. The world would have laughed at him. So going back to this situation with Ferguson, here's my position on Ferguson from the jump. And some of it you may like, some of it you may not. Truth be told, you know me, I can't say that I care one way or the other what people think. I want you to think for yourself. I'm not here to give you your opinion. I'm here to share mine, and maybe we can learn from each other. I don't know Michael Brown. I don't. I don't know very much about what happened between him and the officer. I was raised by a police officer who's my stepfather, so I have seen the very best of police when they're at their best, and I do believe there are a lot of good cops out here, and I don't care what anybody thinks about that, because I've seen good cops. They all don't deserve to die, but I've seen bad cops. I've seen corruption. I have seen police abuse of the worst kind. I have seen police do things that clearly shows a kind of arrogance in which some officers are tempted to believe that they are above the law, that they have a right to mistreat you, they have a right to disrespect you, they have a right to hurt you and not be held accountable for what they did. And I think that is one of the fundamental problems when you link that back to mass incarceration. I mean, it starts with stop and frisk, racial profiling, police brutality on the street, where the word of this upstanding white police officer is always taken over this young black man from the street who's been criminalized from the day he was born. When those two men go into court and give different stories, they're going to believe the officer and they're going to ruin this young man's life. And that's why you see so many black men in prison. Prison is an extension of slavery. We know that. Now, that to me was the reason that I was in support of the Ferguson protest. From the very beginning, I never ever wanted to get caught up in the whole the whole gossipy part of it, of who did what, coulda, woulda, shoulda, when this happened, whether or not somebody stole cigars, and whether or not somebody was told to get out of the street, whether he was lunging at the cop when he shot him. I don't want to get into all of that, because I can imagine scenarios in either direction. I can imagine scenarios where a big, strong man tries to get at your gun, and unfortunately people don't understand that when someone tries to take your gun, you are fighting for your life, because if they get your gun, you're dead. And at the same time, we can imagine scenarios where black men are killed for no reason. My issue in terms of the Darren Wilson situation was, I said I need to see more evidence. Because I hadn't seen anything in this kid's track record. I say kid because he was 28, but he's not a kid, he's a man. I didn't see anything in this man's track record to show me that he woke up every morning wanting to kill black people. I said, how many black people has he killed before? With George Zimmerman, he had done things like that. He had done violent things before, racist things before. The man who killed Jordan Davis, he had done violent things before, he had done racist things before. You go back to the OJ trial, Officer Mark Furman, he had done violent and racist things before against black people. So my feeling was that maybe there should be a track record. Show me what this guy has done before, because I don't want to vilify an innocent man. I'm not going to do that just for the sake of what people want me to believe. And here's the thing. And this is why the Ferguson protests were absolutely necessary, and why an indictment was absolutely necessary. The police showed a tremendous amount of disrespect for the American people, for not just for the American people, for the citizens of Ferguson, particularly the black citizens in that community who witnessed what happened. They didn't talk to the witnesses afterward. They left that boy's body out in the street far longer than he needed to. Now there's a dispute over whether or not they had to wait for the coroner and all that. But I'm sorry, I think it was a form of dehumanization that we as black men are very sick of, because for hundreds of years black men have been thought about like animals that need to be put down when we get out of line. Notice even with professional athletes, you think about look at the way white America loves, say, a LeBron James or a Michael Jordan. But what happens when they get out of line? They become like, remember when Ron Artest attacked a fan in the stands? Well, they dealt with him like an animal that needed to be put down. If you think about the way people look at animals, an animal in the zoo is marveled for its for its power and its grace, and they like to watch it from behind the cage. But once that animal escapes the cage, they make sure that they put the animal down, and they look over, they review the situation to make sure it doesn't happen again. Well, the same thing happens with black men in all walks of life. A big 6'5" black man who can dribble a basketball or throw a football is a wonderful pet for white America. He is a beautiful, mindless creature that is there for their entertainment. But once that animal starts to step outside of the zone that's been created for him, meaning that he fights back against injustice the way the Rams players did, or he gets violent and angry the way Ron Artest did that day, or he commits a crime the way Maurice Claret at Ohio State committed a crime, he then becomes a menace to society and something that white people fear. And that's when they try to put him down, and they try to make an example out of him, teach him a lesson, teach other black men a lesson, to say, boy, you need to stay in your place or we are going to execute you. And so ultimately that dehumanization, I think, is what plays a role in America not being able to feel the pain of black people. Now, I don't really agree much with Melissa Harris Perry on a lot of stuff, but one area that we certainly agree on is that, as she mentioned, the idea that we're not able to see the pain of black men, and I certainly agree with that. That in our society, we don't think that black men are as human as the rest of us. We don't think black men love their children. We don't think black men have a problem going to prison. We don't think black men really suffer or have feelings, when they get hurt, when we're killed in all this violence, and that permeates itself throughout society. It showed itself in the Mike Brown situation. Now, moving on. The other issue with the Ferguson Police Department was that there was a severe lack of transparency. I mean, they didn't tell the public anything. I mean, they literally sat there in silence, because again, this sort of arrogance that you see in many police departments. We're above the law. We don't have to answer to anybody. We do things our way. That is not supposed to be like that. You're supposed to police with the community, but instead, Ferguson comes off to me like a place where rich white people are protected from poor black people. So black people are not the people who are served and protected by police. We're the ones who are assaulted, harassed, and menaced by the police. And so they didn't answer to anybody. They protected the officer, but yet they had no problem throwing Mike Brown's reputation, I guess throwing it out to the wolves, just throwing it out to the public so that everybody could just see, what kind of horrible person he allegedly was, which I don't agree with. Of course, he was a young guy. I don't believe he was a perfect guy. I'm not going to say that either. So don't think I'm going to get on this whole gentle giant bandwagon. I thought that was silly. But I think you got to look at the facts where they lie. But moving on, I think that the militarization, the way the police responded to the public unrest, I think was symptomatic of the way they are accustomed to responding to black people. If you go back, we're making a film right now on Black Wall Street, and if you look at the news clippings that existed at that time, you will see that during that time, when they were literally going into black people's homes and looting them and burning them to the ground, the media was reporting that brave white men were going to protect the town from black savages who had gotten out of control. And so ultimately, the same thing is true here. I think that white Americans, while they may have a point that maybe some of the details of the case don't make any sense, some things are a little bit fuzzy, they don't understand that these people were gathered for a just reason, and it actually went deeper than Michael Brown. I didn't really support the Ferguson protests just because of what happened with one person one officer, and one incident in one tiny town with less than 20,000 people, you could fit Ferguson in the south side of Chicago probably 50 times. We got big cities out here that got real problems. I'm not going to spend my whole life fighting fighting the police department in one tiny town when you have 1,000 others that have the same issue. And I'm hopeful that other people that gathered in Ferguson understood that this is about the bigger picture. This is about police brutality. This is about harassment, stop and frisk, mass incarceration, the criminalization of black men, the mistreatment and dehumanization of an entire people. It's not about the details and the who did what's of one situation with one officer and one man and one incident. Because I'm gonna tell you this, it's very, very risky to take this whole movement, this whole legitimate issue, and leverage it on whether or not Michael Brown did or didn't do something wrong that day. I don't know. I'm not saying Michael did or didn't. But again, so the last point I'll make on this is that's why you needed an indictment, because you needed this thing to go to trial. You needed the evidence laid out on the table so the public could review it. You needed the witnesses and everybody to be cross-examined. You needed a deeper analysis of what happened. And the fact that there was no indictment is another symptom of the lack of justice. Not just in this system, but in many systems around the country. So for me, if you want to know my opinion on Ferguson, I've had so many people that ask me about it, and I literally have been watching, observing, and I don't really try to talk about stuff until I'm sure what I think. So I've literally been marinating on this for the longest time. I didn't even want to talk to CNN or anybody else about it too much, because I didn't want to say something that I didn't believe to be true. So if you want to know my fundamental basic opinion, it is that that Ferguson, the unrest in Ferguson began long before Michael Brown was killed. I think that one incident was the straw that broke the camel's back. I think that people are gathered for a just reason. I think people should maintain a focus on the big picture, while at the same time pursuing justice for the people of Ferguson and for Michael Brown. We should not somehow be deluded into believing that if we clean up the Ferguson Police Department that we've really made any meaningful progress in the world, because Ferguson is just one city. But at the same time, there are national implications. You saw President Obama recently announced, I want to say $75 million that he wants to put into police cameras so that police can be monitored. And you think about that, that's a very interesting interesting development, that they are fighting that hard against even having police monitored while they do their jobs. That again is a symptom of significant police disrespect, or this idea that they are above the law, because they're literally saying, who are you to monitor what I do while I'm on my job? But yet at the same time, they feel that they have every right to monitor what you do, to surveil you, and to spy on you, and to follow you, and to harass you. But they feel that you have no right to do the same to them. And I think that asymmetry is the critical issue here. That's what where the problem is. But I encourage other people to understand, we cannot, in my opinion, go through life saying every cop needs to be killed, or every cop is bad, or every cop is evil. I'm just not going to go with that. That doesn't sit well with my spirit. But at the same time, I think that when you talk about what Michael Brown's father saying, "Burn this bitch down," you talk about Farrakhan saying, "Look, as long as I think Farrakhan said, and I love Minister Farrakhan. He doesn't live too far from me." And I told him in person when we sat for 3 hours and talked. I told him how much I respect what he does, because I respect an independent black man. Farrakhan said in his speech, he said, as long as they can kill you and kill your children and then go to Wendy's and have a burger, they're going to keep on doing it. But when they die, or when we die and they die along with us, then you'll start to see people wanting to sit down at the table and negotiate. Now, I'm not advocating people going out and dying or doing anything other than what their spirit tells them to do. But understand, sometimes you really have to tell people that if there is no justice, there will be no peace. Because effectively, when you continue with business as usual and ask me to sit down and remain quiet while you are killing my children, you're creating peace in your own life by disrupting the peace in my life and in my family. So you bring violence to me, I'm going to have to bring violence to you. You kill my child, I'm going to have to kill you, because that's what a father is supposed to do. If the justice system does not give justice, where in the hell is Michael Brown's father supposed to get the justice that his son deserves? What is a father supposed to do when the man who killed your child isn't even going to be indicted? So that's all I have to say. Answer that question for me, and I'll hear what you have to say. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World. Please take care. God bless. I'm gone. Peace.